Hi everyone, it's Lauren and this is my November reading wrap up. Before we get started, so one or two things I just need to get out of the way first. I have a load more picture books and children's lit books which I'm giving away at the end of this video. So stay tuned for a chance to win some of those. And there won't be a video next week because it's December and it's Christmas and it's very busy at the moment. But my next video will be up the weekend after, which will be a special page to screen featuring a Christmas carol. So if you want to get all Christmassy the weekend before Christmas, that video is coming your way very soon. So the first book that I read in November was Evelina by Burney. This was a buddy read with some other booktubers, and it is an epistolary novel, which means that it takes the form of letters, mostly from Evelina, relaying her adventures to her adoptive father, but also from other characters. It is about Evelina, who is a young lady, and this is her introduction into the great London society and her adventures or misadventures. This was a really charming, funny novel, very similar to Jane Austen, especially some of the characters in are very grotesque and very caricatured, very funny. Evelina herself is utterly charming, very sweet, and it was a nice fun read. I found her prose really engaging, and despite some of their really silly situations Evelina kept finding herself in, I found myself getting really angry on her behalf, because a lot of the gentlemen in this book behave atrociously towards Evelina, and a very witty take on the sort of engagements between men and women at that time and the art and pitfalls of courtship, and it was nice. The next book I read in November is a really interesting one. I was in Waterstones in the independent publishers section, and I came across this, which is called The Blue Fox by Sjon, I think that is how you say his name, who is an Icelandic poet and novelist who works really closely with Björk a lot, and there's a quote from Björk at the top. She thinks it's a magical novel. This is published by Telegram. I hadn't heard anything about it. I just sort of read the first couple of pages and thought it seemed kind of interesting. This is a very short book. A lot of the chapters, I suppose, almost take the form of poems or letters or very short sections. It's set in Iceland in the late 1800s, and it's about a lot of things. I mean, the main arc of the story is a priest who's out in the wilderness hunting a blue fox, but it's also about his past and about his neighbours and the people who live in his parish, particularly a herbalist who has adopted, I suppose, a young girl who has Down syndrome, who he kind of found shackled to a ship. It's all a bit bizarre, and it covers so many topics considering it's such a small book. I found it very haunting, particularly the descriptions of the winter, kind of the wild snowy wilderness when he's going hunting for the fox. You do get some sections from the fox's perspective as well, and some other interesting sections about the herbalist's backstory, also a lot about how people approached Down syndrome at the time and what people thought Down syndrome was, and I found that very equally interesting and uncomfortable to read. It's described on the back as being part mystery, part fairy tale, and I guess that's a fair way of describing it. It's very interesting. I don't know that I loved it, but I know that when I finished it, it definitely stayed with me, and I kept thinking about it, and it was quite a nice winter read actually. Then I fancied having a go at one of my graphic novels, so I picked up Persepolis and just completely blitzed through it in a day or two. There are two halves of Persepolis: a story of a childhood, a story of a return, and this is both of them combined. This is a memoir written as a comic strip by Marjane Satrapi, and it's about her time in Iran, just before and during and after the Islamic Revolution, about her time leaving Iran and going to Vienna, I think she goes to, and just about her life really, but it is mixed up with the politics and the history of the time. I'm sure most people are familiar with Persepolis, but it's drawn in these beautiful black and white frames, and I did really enjoy it. I'm glad that I picked this up. It gives you a really interesting window into normal Iranian life and what most people in Iran think and believe, and the struggles of dealing with extreme governments and being at war. Also a political and historical perspective from the Middle East, because we're so used to news coming to us from a Western perspective, and seeing an Iranian everyday perspective of what's happening in the West and your place in the wider world was very interesting. It's just really important, and I'm pleased that I read it, and I enjoyed it as a graphic novel as well, which is something new that I'm trying to get into a little bit. The next book that I finished was a book of short stories by Mayhew Bergman, and it is called Almost Famous Women. Now, this takes the lives of lots of women who are on the fringes of celebrity throughout the ages, women who maybe don't have great biographies written about them, and she takes their lives and writes fictionalised short stories about them in many different forms. Some of them are from the perspective of the target woman, I suppose. Some of them are from the perspective of people in their wider lives. She employs some different writing styles, and the stories are of varying lengths. And the idea of it, I think, is to give a voice to and shine a light on the lives of some women who have maybe been forgotten by history, women who are struggling to be famous or to achieve and maybe didn't quite, or maybe women who did achieve fame but then fell into obscurity and poverty later on in their lives. A few of these stories I thought were fantastic, and I really enjoyed her writing style and was kind of really interested in the life of the woman that she chose. But some of them I didn't love as much. I think it's always difficult with short stories because she's tried to use different writing styles, you know, because you don't want to read a book of short stories which feel all the same. But at the same time, it did feel quite disjointed, I think, and the women were all very, very different, and their lives and the stories about their lives were so different. It didn't really feel like there was a strong theme going throughout all of the short stories. So although it was good, and I enjoyed picking it up and reading a story and then leaving it for a few weeks and then maybe reading another couple of stories, it's very easy to dip in and out of. And like I said, some of the stories I thought were fantastic and I really enjoyed them. I don't know overall if the book quite achieved its goals, but I would like to read some more by her. She did write another book of short stories called Birds of a Lesser Paradise, I think that's the name of it, which I think again was her debut, and this is her second book. But still a good read, an enjoyable read, and I look forward to more from this author in the future. I also read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which, as you may have guessed, was in preparation for my Page to Screen episode on that book. I've actually not read A Christmas Carol before, so I was really interested to read it. I've seen so many film adaptations, you feel like you know these stories so well, but I've not actually read the text itself. So this was it was really nice, actually. I really enjoyed reading it. It's not a very long book at all, and I know there's a massive moral to the tale, and you know, I know that when I watch a film, but when you read it especially, I think it really came across to me that it felt so much more like a fable, or it just felt like it used a lot of very obvious tropes to get the wider message that you should be a good person across. But you know, I really liked it. I really enjoyed. I think these kind of stories I really enjoy Dickens's writing in, because he can use so many elaborate adjectives, and it's just beautiful the way he's describing Christmas and the way he describes Scrooge. I really enjoyed it. And then the final book that I finished in November was another book of short stories which I had been reading for a fair amount of time, and that is The Montana Stories by Katherine Mansfield. Now this was supposed to be a buddy read about a few months ago, and we all kind of fell out of it a little bit because there was so much going on, but I've kind of stuck to it and have been reading it on and off for the past couple of months. This is a really interesting collection of Katherine Mansfield's short stories because it takes them in a very pure form, and a lot of them in a very unedited form, and most of the stories in this collection aren't actually finished. So you read, you know, five pages or so, and then at the end it just says unfinished. Or you get lots of different beginnings and different attempts at the same story, which is very, very interesting, especially if you're looking to learn a little bit more about Katherine Mansfield's writing. There are also author's notes included in this book to give you some context to some of them, especially some of the stories that were printed in magazines. There are illustrations that go with them, and there is a note at the beginning that says that Katherine Mansfield actually hated a lot of the illustrations, and it's very interesting seeing the difference between the stories which were more commercial and published in magazines to the other longer stories, which to me feel a bit more serious and a little bit less popular. A couple that I particularly liked in this collection were At the Bay, which is quite a long story, and also The Garden Party as well. And I think it's just a shame that there are so many unfinished stories in here, because although that's interesting, actually when I read her complete stories I really, really enjoyed them. So I just want more, but I mean that's good. That means I can buy more of her short story collections and read more from her. It was a really good introduction. I would describe her writing writing style as almost Virginia Woolfy, almost Virginia Woolfy, sort of a little bit more jolly hockey sticks and quite traditionally British. So it's interesting, it feels like it's on the cusp of modernist literature, sort of. I really am no expert. If you want to learn more about Katherine Mansfield, Holly at Library at the Edge of the World has done a wonderful Katherine Mansfield 101 video which kind of explains about her as an author and about her different collections of stories. So if you want to go and check out that video, I'll link it down below. So that was everything that I read in November. I had quite a good reading month because I had a lot of books on my TBR or on my currently reading pile, I suppose, which I just hadn't finished, especially the books of short stories, and it was really getting to me. I was getting quite stressed out because I hadn't finished any, so I was really pleased to actually get some stuff read. So now the time has come for the giveaway. So I have 3 sets of books to give away in this video. I have a set of picture books, a set of young children's books, and a set of teenage books. So the picture books that I have to give away are The Mouse Who Ate the Moon, The Way to the Zoo, and Use Your Imagination. So this will be a set, so someone will win all 3 of these books. The sort of middle grade books that I have to give away are The 13-Story Treehouse, The Farm Beneath the Water, and The Parent Agency. So again, that comes as a set of 3. And then the 2 teen books that I'm giving away are The Lie Tree and A Song for Ella Gray. So if you would like to win any of these 3 sets of books, just comment below letting me know which set of books you'd like to win, either the picture books, the middle grade books, or the teen books. And you have 72 hours from the upload of this video to enter. I will use a random number generator to pick 3 people below. The winners will be contacted individually, and this is open internationally as well, so don't worry about entering if you're not from the UK. I'm just spreading some Christmas cheer. So here they all are, the books to be won. Let me know if you would like to enter. You don't have to enter, obviously. Also, do let me know if you've read any of these books featured in this month's wrap-up. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! What my taste is. I just needed to dive in. I got the recommendations, and I thought, and then one that I just like the look of myself, and see what I think of it. So here are my 4 graphic, novelty options.